So last hour, we started debunking the false narratives that we are seeing play out in the presidential election. A big one is the false equivalencies on violent rhetoric. Last week, the deputy editorial page director of the Wall Street Journal, Daniel Henninger, wrote a column entitled Killing Trump. He glosses over all the things Trump has said and done to promote violence, justify violence, glorify violence, and laugh at violence. Henninger writes, quote, "Yes, we know the legal details, the abhorrent events of January 6th, and the role of Mr. Trump's own rhetoric. But did Democrats think this nonstop assault on a person who twice got about half the country's popular presidential vote would be cost-free, that it would have no negative effect on the psychological health of America's public life? You have to love the way the conventional wisdom shows up at moments like this, proclaiming that we need to tone it down. It might be a little late for that."
Tone it down. And again, he says nothing about Donald Trump. What Donald Trump said after they caught the guy at the golf course.
Let's go through it. The argument is that the media and the Harris campaign need to stop talking about the very real threat Trump poses to American democracy. I talk about facts. Bill Maher took on that argument on his show on Friday.
Of course, he's absolutely right that we probably should tone it down when we're calling our opponents the end of democracy, the end of Western civilization. We're not helping our arguments.
I disagree. That's a dumb argument, I think, because that's their argument, which is that you guys are saying Trump is a threat to democracy. But he is a threat to democracy. The answer can't be that we can't say what's true. I want to say what's true, and the left has to do that too.
Since January 6th, Donald Trump has consistently made those threats. Remember what he said that day at the Ellipse? Isn't stoking a violent insurgency a threat to democracy?
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
Is saying your vice president should have been hanged a threat to democracy? White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, according to an account provided to the House committee investigating January 6th, told the colleagues that Trump had said something to the effect of maybe Mr. Pence should have been hanged. Is saying the Biden family should have been arrested 2 weeks before the 2020 election a threat to democracy?
That Biden family and others, but that Biden family is corrupt. It's a corrupt family. And with me and my kids, let me tell you, my kids, I'll tell you something, though, and it's right, lock them up. You should lock them up. Lock up the Bidens. Lock up Hillary. Lock them up.
By the way, he pressured his own attorney general 2 weeks before the election, Bill Barr, to throw Joe Biden in jail. His political opponent pressured him 2 weeks before the election to throw his political opponent in jail, like they do in Belarus, like they do in Russia.
Is calling the January 6 rioters patriots, hostages, promising to pardon them on day one a threat to democracy?
The moment we win, we will rapidly review the cases of every political prisoner unjustly victimized by the Harris regime, and I will sign their pardons on day one.
Is threatening to execute the Joint Chiefs of Staff a threat to democracy? Because that's what Trump suggested in a social media post when ranting about retired General Mark Milley. Is mocking the brutal beating of a political rival's spouse a threat to democracy?
Kamala Harris and the radical liberals force anarchy on the American people while they live in safety, in many cases behind walls. You know that. Nancy Pelosi has a big wall wrapped around her house. Of course, it didn't help too much with the problem she had, did it?
Is promising to be a dictator for a day a threat to democracy?
Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
He's repeatedly said he's going to be a dictator on day one.
Is telling supporters if he wins the election, they will never have to vote again, a threat to democracy.
You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
Is vowing to terminate the Constitution a threat to democracy? Trump did that in another social media post while rambling and lying about the 2020 election. Is refusing to admit he lost the last election and sowing doubt in the results of this election a threat to democracy. Trump has done that for years and still refuses to accept he lost in 2020 in what top government and industry officials have called the most secure election in American history.
Make no mistake, this election was stolen from you, from me, and from the country.
There was never a second of any day that I didn't believe that that election was rigged. It was a rigged election. It was a rigged election, and it was a stolen, disgusting election. And this country should be ashamed.
We got to stop the cheating. If we stop that cheating, if we don't let them cheat, I don't even have to campaign anymore. We're going to win by so much. In the meantime, too big to rig. Too big to rig.
So what do you call that? I'm wondering what you call that. And for those people that said, oh, nothing happened in his first term. Yeah, January 6th happened in his first term. The attempt to overthrow American democracy, to throw out a presidential election because he didn't like the outcome, happened. All those things Mika said happened in the first term. And there are people actually writing this weekend. Oh, and on Bill Maher going, oh, you know what? Nothing really happened in the first term. We got by it okay. We survived. Yeah, we survived. Democracy survived in spite of Donald Trump. Democracy survived in spite of his efforts with federal courts, people in the media, local Republican officials in Michigan, in Georgia, in Pennsylvania. Yeah, we survived. We survived in spite of everything that Donald Trump tried to do in the first term. Let's bring in right